I went on a family trip to Greece with my family and my stepsister. I couldn't believe what she did. I never imagined that our family trip to Greece would turn out the way it did. It all started when my dad married my stepmom, and along with her came my stepsister, Lily. We got along well enough, but there was always an underlying tension. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, or the way her presence made my heart race a little faster. The trip was supposed to be a bonding experience, a chance for our blended family to grow closer. We arrived in Athens and immediately fell in love with the vibrant culture and beautiful landscapes. Our days were filled with exploring ancient ruins, lounging on pristine beaches, and indulging in delicious Greek cuisine. One evening, we decided to visit a local taverna for dinner. The atmosphere was lively, with traditional music playing and locals dancing. I found myself sitting next to Lily, her proximity making me unusually aware of her every movement. She looked stunning in a light summer dress, her hair cascading in loose waves over her shoulders. As the night went on, I noticed Lily's gaze lingering on me longer than usual. She laughed at my jokes a little too enthusiastically and brushed her hand against mine more times than I could count. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but as the night progressed, it became clear that her flirtation was intentional. When our parents decided to join the locals in a dance, Lily and I were left alone at the table. She leaned in closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "You know," she said, her voice low and teasing, "I always wondered what it would be like if we weren't step-siblings." Her words sent a jolt through me. I tried to keep my cool, but the way she looked at me, with a mixture of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place, made it difficult. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I think you know exactly what I mean." Before I could respond, our parents returned, laughing and breathless, from their dance. The moment was broken, but the tension between Lily and me remained palpable. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. My mind was racing, replaying our conversation over and over. When we finally returned to our hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had shifted between us. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about her words and the way she looked at me. I knew this trip would be unforgettable, but I had no idea just how far things would go. The next morning, we set out early to visit the Acropolis. The sun was already high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the ancient ruins. As we walked, I found myself falling back to walk beside Lily. We exchanged small talk, but the undercurrent of our previous night's conversation was ever present. At the top of the hill, the view of Athens sprawled out beneath us was breathtaking. I stood there, taking it all in, when I felt Lily's hand slip into mine. Startled, I looked over at her. She was smiling, but there was a seriousness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I meant what I said last night," she murmured. "I've been thinking about it for a long time." I swallowed hard, trying to process her words. The air around us seemed to buzz with electricity. "Lily, we can't—" "Why not?" she interrupted, her grip on my hand tightening. "We're not related by blood. There's nothing really stopping us." Her logic was hard to argue with, but I knew our situation was more complicated than that. Our families had merged, and any relationship between us would have serious repercussions. "I don't know," I said finally, feeling torn. "I just don't want to mess things up." She nodded, her expression softening. "I get it, but just know that I'm here, and I'm not going to pretend anymore." With that, she let go of my hand and walked a few steps ahead, leaving me to grapple with my thoughts. The rest of the day passed in a haze. We visited more sites, took countless photos, but my mind was always on Lily and the unspoken tension between us. That evening, back at the hotel, our parents decided to have a quiet night in. Lily and I, however, were restless. We agreed to take a walk along the beach, hoping the cool night air would clear our heads. The beach was almost deserted, the waves gently lapping at the shore. We walked in silence for a while, the only sound the crunch of sand beneath our feet. Finally, Lily stopped and turned to me. I don't want things to be awkward between us, she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. But I can't keep pretending that I don't feel this way. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I don't want things to be awkward either, I admitted, but I don't know how to deal with this. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. We don't have to figure it all out right now, but maybe we could just see where this goes. Her proposal was tempting. The idea of exploring whatever was between us without the pressure of defining it seemed like a good start. I nodded slowly. Okay, let's just take it one step at a time. Her face lit up with a smile, and for the first time since our trip began, I felt a sense of relief. We continued our walk, this time with a new understanding between us. As we made our way back to the hotel, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. I had no idea what the rest of our trip would bring, but one thing was certain. It was going to be unforgettable. The morning after our walk on the beach felt different. There was an unspoken understanding between Lily and me, a mutual acknowledgement of what had transpired. I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as we gathered in the hotel lobby, ready to explore more of Greece. Our destination for the day was a small, picturesque village nestled in the hills. The winding roads and charming houses with vibrant bougainvillea climbing their walls made it feel like we had stepped into a postcard. The village was known for its traditional crafts, and we spent the morning wandering through narrow streets, admiring handmade pottery and textiles. As the day wore on, the summer heat became almost unbearable. We found a cozy cafe with outdoor seating under a canopy of vines and decided to take a break. Our parents chatted animatedly about the day's discoveries, but my attention was on Lily. She sat across from me, sipping her iced coffee, her eyes occasionally meeting mine with a knowing smile. When our parents decided to visit a nearby museum, Lily and I opted to stay behind and explore the village a bit more on our own. We meandered through the quiet streets, the sound of cicadas filling the air. Eventually, we found ourselves at the edge of the village, where a narrow path led up a hill. Curious, we decided to follow it. The path was steep and rocky, but the view from the top was worth it. We stood there, looking out over the village and the surrounding countryside, the sea glistening in the distance. It was peaceful, almost surreal. "This place is amazing," Lily said, her voice breaking the silence. "It feels like we're the only ones here." I nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "Yeah, it does." We stood there for a while, neither of us speaking, just enjoying the moment. Finally, Lily turned to me, her expression serious. "About last night—" I swallowed, my heart starting to race. "Yeah?" She took a deep breath. "I don't want to pressure you into anything. I needed to be honest about how I feel." "I appreciate that," I said, trying to find the right words. "And I'm glad you told me. I've been feeling something too, but I wasn't sure if it was just me." She smiled, relief evident on her face. "It's not just you." The space between us seemed to shrink as we stood there, the tension from the night before returning. I took a step closer, my eyes locked on hers. "Lily, this is complicated. Our families—" "I know," she interrupted, her voice soft. "But maybe we don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe we can just see what happens." Her suggestion made sense. It took some of the pressure off and allowed us to explore our feelings without the weight of expectations. I nodded slowly. "Okay, let's take it one step at a time." Her smile widened, and for a moment everything else faded away. We were just two people, standing on a hill in Greece, trying to navigate our complicated feelings. As we made our way back down the path, the sun was starting to set, casting a warm, golden glow over everything. We walked in companionable silence, the unspoken agreement between us making me feel lighter. When we reached the village, we found a small taverna and decided to have dinner there. The place was cozy, with flickering candles on the tables and a view of the sunset over the sea. We talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing easily. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of ease with Lily. After dinner, we took a leisurely stroll back to the hotel, the cool night air a welcome relief from the heat of the day. When we reached our rooms, there was a moment of hesitation. Lily stood in front of her door, looking at me with a mix of uncertainty and hope. "Good night," she said softly, her hand resting on the door handle. "Good night," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. She lingered for a moment, then opened her door and slipped inside. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to gather my thoughts before heading to my own room. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she looked at me, the way her presence made everything feel more intense. This trip was turning out to be more than just a family vacation. It was a journey into uncharted territory, and I had no idea where it would lead. But one thing was certain: whatever happened next, it would be an adventure. The next few days were a whirlwind of sightseeing and family activities. We visited ancient ruins, took a boat trip to a nearby island, and sampled local delicacies in charming village markets. All the while, the unspoken understanding between Lily and me grew stronger. Our parents seemed oblivious to the subtle shifts in our relationship, which made things easier. But there were moments when I caught Lily's eye across the dinner table, or when her hand brushed mine as we walked, that sent my heart racing. One afternoon, we decided to visit a secluded beach recommended by a local we met in the village. It was a bit of a trek to get there, but the effort was worth it. The beach was stunning, with crystal clear waters and golden sand, and we had it almost entirely to ourselves. Our parents set up camp under a large umbrella, while Lily and I grabbed our snorkeling gear and headed for the water. The sea was warm and inviting, and we spent the next hour exploring the underwater world, pointing out colorful fish and intricate coral formations. When we finally emerged, laughing and breathless, we decided to take a walk along the beach. The sun was high in the sky, casting a brilliant glow over everything. We walked in comfortable silence, the sound of the waves a soothing backdrop. As we rounded a rocky outcrop, we found a small, hidden cove. It was perfect, secluded and tranquil, with smooth, flat rocks perfect for lounging. We settled down, the warm rock under our bodies a pleasant contrast to the cool sea breeze. "This place is amazing," Lily said, lying back and closing her eyes. "I could stay here forever." "Yeah, it's pretty incredible," I agreed, feeling a sense of contentment wash over me. She lay there for a while, just soaking in the sun and the peacefulness of the cove. Eventually, Lily sat up and turned to me, a serious expression on her face. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she said quietly, "about what this all means." I sat up too, my heart starting to race. And I think we should just see where this goes," she said, her eyes meeting mine. "No pressure, no expectations. Just see what happens." I nodded slowly, my mind whirling. "I think that's a good idea. It's a lot to take in." She reached out and took my hand, her touch sending a jolt through me. "I know, but I'm willing to take the risk if you are." I looked at her, seeing the vulnerability and determination in her eyes. "I'm willing," I said, squeezing her hand. A slow smile spread across her face, and for a moment, everything else faded away. We were just two people, taking a leap into the unknown. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of laughter and easy conversation. We talked about everything and nothing, our connection growing deeper with each passing moment. When it was time to head back, I felt a sense of reluctance, not wanting the day to end. That evening, we had dinner at a quaint little restaurant overlooking the sea. The food was delicious, and the atmosphere was perfect. Our parents were in high spirits, sharing stories and jokes, oblivious to the charged undercurrent between Lily and me. After dinner, we decided to take another walk along the beach. The moon was full, casting a silvery glow over the water. We walked in companionable silence, the only sound the gentle lapping of the waves. As we reached the same cove from earlier, we stopped and sat down on the warm sand. The moonlight made everything look ethereal, almost otherworldly. "This trip has been amazing," Lily said softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I'm really glad we did this." "Me too," I agreed, feeling a sense of contentment settle over me. We sat there for a while, just enjoying the moment. Eventually, Lily turned to me, her expression serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, curious. "What do you think will happen when we go back home?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, considering her question. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think we can handle it. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." She smiled, a hint of relief in her eyes. "I like the sound of that." We sat there for a while longer, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. When we finally made our way back to the hotel, there was a sense of calm between us. Whatever the future held, we knew we would face it together. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about Lily, about the way she made me feel, and the possibilities that lay ahead. This trip had been more than just a family vacation. It had been a journey of self-discovery, and I had a feeling that the adventure was just beginning. The days in Greece seemed to blur together, each one more magical than the last. Lily and I continued to navigate the delicate balance between our burgeoning feelings and our roles within our blended family. Our parents remained blissfully unaware of the tension simmering just below the surface, which allowed us the freedom to explore our connection without constant scrutiny. One afternoon, we decided to visit a famous vineyard on the outskirts of a nearby town. The drive there was scenic, winding through rolling hills and picturesque villages. The vineyard itself was stunning, with rows upon rows of grapevines stretching as far as the eye could see. We were given a tour, learning about the history of the vineyard and the intricate process of winemaking. After the tour, we were invited to a wine tasting in a charming, rustic building overlooking the vineyards. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over everything. Our parents were engrossed in conversation with the vineyard owner, leaving Lily and me to our own devices. We sat at a small table near the window, sampling different wines and enjoying the stunning view. The wine was excellent, and it wasn't long before we both felt a pleasant buzz. The atmosphere was relaxed, and the conversation flowed easily. "Do you ever think about the future?" Lily asked suddenly, her voice thoughtful. "Like, where you'll be in 5 or 10 years?" I took a sip of my wine, considering her question. "Yeah, I do. I guess I just hope to be happy, doing something I love. What about you?" She smiled, a faraway look in her eyes. "I want to travel, see the world, find something I'm passionate about, and maybe have someone special to share it with." There was a vulnerability in her words that touched me deeply. "I think that's a great plan," I said softly, "and I'm sure you'll find that special someone." Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. "Maybe I already have," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart skipped a beat at her words, the intensity of her gaze, the honesty in her expression. It was overwhelming. Before I could respond, she leaned in, her lips brushing against mine in a tentative, searching kiss. The sensation was electrifying, sending a jolt of electricity through my body. I kissed her back, the world around us disappearing as we lost ourselves in the moment. Her lips were soft and warm, and the taste of wine lingered on her breath. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of desire and uncertainty. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," she confessed. "Me too," I admitted, my voice husky with emotion. We sat there for a while, just holding hands and enjoying the closeness. It felt like a turning point, a moment that solidified our connection and gave us the courage to move forward. Later that evening, we returned to the hotel, our parents oblivious to the significant shift in our relationship. We decided to take another walk along the beach, needing the solitude to process everything that had happened. The moon was full again, casting a silvery glow over the water. We walked in silence for a while, the sound of the waves a soothing backdrop. Eventually, we reached the same cove where we had shared so many meaningful moments. Lily stopped and turned to me, her expression serious. "Do you think we can really make this work?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I took her hands in mine, looking into her eyes. "I do," I said firmly. "It won't be easy, and there will be challenges, but I believe we can make it work if we both want it." She nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I want it," she said softly. "I want us." With those words, any lingering doubts I had melted away. We stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world around us fading into the background. In that moment, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together. As we walked back to the hotel, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I hadn't felt in a long time. This trip had been a journey of discovery, not just of Greece, but of ourselves and our relationship. When we reached our rooms, there was no hesitation this time. Lily smiled at me, her eyes filled with promise. "Good night," she said softly, her hand lingering on mine. "Good night," I replied, my heart full. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but feel excited about the future. This trip had been more than just a family vacation. It had been a turning point, a moment of transformation. And I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our final days in Greece were bittersweet. The trip had been an incredible journey, full of discovery and unexpected emotions. But with our departure looming, the reality of returning home weighed heavily on both of us. We spent our last day exploring the picturesque town of Nafplio. Its charming streets, lined with colorful buildings and blooming flowers, provided the perfect backdrop for our final adventure. We visited ancient fortresses, wandered through bustling markets, and savored our last taste of authentic Greek cuisine. That evening, we decided to have dinner at a restaurant perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. The view was breathtaking, with the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink hues. Our parents were in high spirits, reminiscing about the trip and planning future vacations. Lily and I, however, were quieter, lost in our thoughts. After dinner, we took one last walk along the beach. The moon was full again, casting a magical glow over the water. We walked hand in hand, the unspoken understanding between us growing stronger with each step. When we reached the cove, we sat down on the sand, the sound of the waves filling the silence. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder, her presence comforting and familiar. "Are you nervous about going back home?" she asked softly. "A little," I admitted, "but I'm more excited than anything. This trip has changed everything, and I can't wait to see what happens next." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Me too. It's going to be different, but I think it'll be good." We sat there for a while, just enjoying the moment. Eventually, Lily turned to me, her expression serious. "I don't want to lose what we found here," she said quietly. "Promise me we'll find a way to make it work." I took her hand in mine, squeezing it gently. "I promise," I said firmly. "We'll figure it out together." She smiled, a mixture of relief and happiness in her eyes. "Together," she repeated softly. The next morning we packed our bags and prepared to leave Greece. The journey back to the airport was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, watching the beautiful landscape of Greece disappear beneath the clouds. Back home, the transition was challenging. The familiarity of our daily routines clashed with the new dynamics of our relationship. But Lily and I were determined to make it work. We found moments to steal away together, to talk and laugh, to remind ourselves of the connection we had forged in Greece. Our parents remained blissfully unaware of the changes between us, which allowed us the freedom to explore our feelings without constant scrutiny. There were challenges, of course, moments of doubt and uncertainty, of navigating the complexities of our blended family. But through it all, we held on to the promise we had made in Greece. One evening, a few weeks after our return, we found ourselves alone in the house. Our parents were out for the evening, and the silence was a welcome respite. We decided to watch a movie, something light and fun, and settled on the couch together. As the movie played, I felt Lily's head rest on my shoulder, her presence a comforting weight. I turned to look at her, finding her eyes already on mine. Without a word, I leaned in and kissed her, the world around us fading into the background. The kiss was slow and gentle, filled with all the emotions we had been carrying since our time in Greece. When we finally pulled apart, I looked into her eyes, seeing the same mixture of love and determination that I felt. "This is just the beginning," she whispered, her voice filled with conviction. I nodded, my heart swelling with emotion. "Just the beginning," I echoed. We sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, the future stretching out before us. This journey had been more than just a family vacation. It had been a transformation, a realization of what truly mattered. And as we navigated the complexities of our new reality, one thing remained certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together.